Welcome in everyone, I am Senpai Zaya. Thank you so much for being here today. So in today's video, we are going to be covering my first impressions on the brand new Souls-like RPG, Lords of the Fallen. And before we actually do get into my first impressions, a little bit of context about me. So I am an avid RPG player. I've played a ton of RPG games over my life. They're my favorite genre. I've beaten every single Souls-like, most of them multiple times, and every single Dark Souls main franchise game as well. So I have a lot of experience when it comes to Souls-likes and this whole genre. Now, Lords of the Fallen was a game that I was really excited for because of the fact that from the trailers, from everything, it looked like it was going to be a fresh and unique, but still true to the Souls-like formula. So let's jump right into my first impressions and see if Lords of the Fallen truly delivered on that fantasy. All right, so the first thing that I do want to talk about with this game is it is beautiful. The graphics are absolutely amazing. The cutscenes, the dynamics, the scenery, the environments, it all looks very beautiful. The scenery that is not supposed to look beautiful, for example, still looks really good, and it's so atmospheric. The sounds, the music design, everything about being in this game and being in this world feels really good, and it really does do a fantastic job of sucking you into this world and just allowing you to be lost in this world for hours. So since you're spending a lot of time in such a beautiful world, while graphics and a beautiful world are really nice, really what comes down to it is the gameplay. The gameplay is going to be the most important thing when it comes to a video game because it's a game. It's a video game, right? Makes sense. So let's talk about combat. Combat in this game actually feels really good. Like really good. I am thoroughly impressed by the combat in this game. Now, I was playing on basically the day one patch. I think they had maybe one patch for like this entire gameplay that you're seeing behind me. I think they had like one little update patch that they had while I was playing and while I was recording footage for this. So it's pretty new, and there obviously are going to be bugs and glitches. The only thing that I will say about combat that I didn't like was some enemy hitboxes didn't feel too accurate. There was a couple bosses or a couple enemies where I felt like I should have been hitting them and I wasn't, but it didn't really come up too much. It was just when you have these really complex models for some of the bosses or the bigger creatures, sometimes those hitboxes get a little wonky, and that's pretty much true for almost every single Souls-like or main Souls franchise game that I've played. So that's not really too out of the normal. But besides that, combat feels really good. The weapons are super weighty and feel very impactful. I tested out a ton of weapons. You had my main weapons that you see in the gameplay, using like the long swords and some spears and just like all sorts of different types of weapons, some short swords which were faster, and they all felt very good. Now, me personally, the faster I thought I was gonna like the strength weapons because I usually try to do like either a strength or a quality build, if you're familiar with those terms, when it comes to Souls-likes. It's my first run through, so that way I just have like a diverse amount of weapons that I can use. However, I picked up like a short sword, and it was like a boss weapon short sword, and the combat strings and everything with how fast and fluent that weapon was, that felt better than any other weapon I used in the game. So there is a lot when it comes to the combat. Like the slower weapons feel very weighty and impactful, and they do pack quite the punch, and the fast weapons feel very fluent. And something to know about the way that this game plays that is different from I think a lot of Souls-likes is there is a lot of momentum when it comes to attacking in this game. So you can see behind me, you can see me doing some combat, but for example, most of the time when you're swinging a weapon, like you actually have quite a bit of forward momentum. Like you will usually like move forward as you're swinging a decent amount of distance, more than like the main franchise Souls-like games for sure. Not even Elden Ring, most weapons don't even have like that much, but it's very natural in this game with like every weapon that you use, whether you're dual wielding or not, to have a lot of momentum with your swings and to cover a good amount of distance. So that's something that's different than Souls-likes, and it feels a little bit different, but with the way that this game plays, it actually feels really good because the way that the dodge mechanic is, where if you're locked on, you do like a sidestep dash, and then if you just single press the button, and then you can like double dash if you press it twice, right? So the way that the combat feels, like everyone feels, it feels almost more anime, where you're doing a lot more like dancing around each other, and the fights feel very much more like you're dancing around and you're really having like an anime type clash when it comes to enemies, as compared to like a traditional Souls game where besides a couple of the main series, you're just talking about like Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, like that type of thing, it's like more slow and methodical. This one still has like the slow methodical, and you can play it. Sometimes I really did just like hit somebody with like a charged strong attack and then just back up and do it again. But ultimately, in a lot of the combat experiences that I had, because there's so much movement and the way that the movement works in the game, it felt more like anime clashes to me, where you are dancing around a lot more and there's a lot more movement. And even like the roll, like the distance that you cover in the roll, and I was wearing like medium armor the whole time, I feel like the medium armor roll is like as much as like a light roll in like Elden Ring, right? So this game just has a lot of movement. It just has a lot more movement than I feel like a traditional Souls like does, but it doesn't feel bad. Like, it feels different, but it actually makes it a lot of fun. Even with like enemies, like when you swing at them or hit them sometimes, or if you like stagger them, they'll recover and have like a side dash, right? Like, they don't just like recover or in like roll or something like that. Like, they have a lot of like momentum to their movements and when they get hit and how they get hit as well too. But it all feels very fluid, and to me that's like amazing, because it feels like a Souls-like, but it feels like its own Souls-like. Like, it doesn't just feel like a carbon copy. And I think that's what's really important when it comes to making a good Souls-like, is to not one-for-one copy just the Dark Souls formula, but add your own unique twist on it and still make it feel like your own game, but just in the spirit of a Souls-like, right? So moving on, now speaking of making it your own, let's talk about like Umbrell, right? The unique mechanic of the game. Most Souls-likes do have like a unique like gimmick, not gimmick in a bad way, but like a unique mechanic that is associated with them that makes them different. It's like the primary thing that makes them different. So for this game, we have Umbrell and we have like the lantern, right? So you have the main world that you exist on, and then you have this lantern that you can peer into, like basically the spirit realm. And on top of that, you can also basically sacrifice your human skin to just go into the spirit realm, where the world will be different. And it's like two maps layered on top of each other, but the environments are going to be different. Like, you will come up to environments where like there's like a gate and there's nowhere else to go, and you pull up your lamp and the gate is not there and you can walk through the gate. So I was a little worried about it at first, because of the fact that I was like, oh, like is that going to be tedious, you know, like balancing this? Am I worried I'm going to like miss too much like loot or good stuff, because I'm not going to be like in Umbrell all the time, because like there is downsides to being in Umbrell and like everything. Like, there was a lot of things that I was worried about. As I got into this game and played hours upon hours of this game, it didn't feel like that at all. Like, Umbrell does not feel like a chore. It does not feel tedious. It's not one of those gimmick type mechanics that feels like it's unnecessary and it's just there to be different. It actually adds to the entire gameplay experience, which is super important, because whenever you do have a unique mechanic that you're trying to separate yourself from the rest of the crowd, it needs to feel good, right? In order for it to be successful, it needs to feel good. This feels good. There are some downsides of being in Umbrell, like the longer that you're in there, more and more powerful enemies will come. And of course, your Umbrell life is like your second life. So if you aren't in the Umbrell realm and you die, you will then go to the Umbrell realm. So you basically like get like a second life, right? Where you'll get back up and then you'll be in the Umbrell realm. But when you're in the Umbrell realm, that's it. And you can manually enter the Umbrell realm whenever you want. So there is some risk to that, because of the fact that like your healing is less and you get more withered health, and so your healing is more relied on doing damage, and that you do sacrifice that life. But there's a lot of benefits to it as well, such as like unique loot that you're going to find, different ways to traverse a map, different little paths or hidden paths. Like, there is a lot that comes with it. And like the lamp abilities, like being able to like basically pull someone's soul out of them, like drag them towards you, slow motion them for a little bit. There is a lot of benefits that Umbrell has. And ultimately, when traversing the map while playing through the game, while going to all these different zones and experiencing them in the living world and in the Umbrell world, it was just really, really cool. And it was fun. There was unique puzzles to solve. Like, everything about it, like all the worries that I had, like they kind of just went away. Like, it feels good and it feels very natural, especially as you get more experience with the game. Transitioning between Umbrell and the real world, and then using your lantern and not using your lantern, it all feels very good. Like, it's not at all what I thought it was going to be. It's so much better. and it's really cool too. So I really love that mechanic. Umbrell and the unique kind of gimmick mechanic. I use that term loosely because usually there's a negative connotation associated with it, but it's not. But the gimmick mechanic associated with this game actually feels amazing, and that is a huge plus from me. So moving on to the systems of the game and kind of like the way that the game functions, right? The way that leveling functions, the way that bring your weapons functions, stuff like that. So far, everything to me feels pretty good and feels pretty fluent, and it makes sense. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is when it comes to boss weapons and regular weapons, or even like more unique weapons, they all have just the same baseline resources to use. Like you don't have to find like shiny rock and then special shiny rock, you know, like it all uses the same resource. So that's pretty nice because it's just very streamlined and you don't have to hunt specifically for these, because you might get a bunch of regular shiny rock, right? And then but you only have like 2 of special shiny rock, and then you use it on a boss weapon, and then you find another one that you like more, right? Like that happens in certain Souls games, but in this game, like it doesn't. Like you just have whatever the resource is, I forgot the specific name of it, but you just have that flat across the board. So that's really nice. When it comes to the rest of the systems in the way that like leveling up works, leveling up makes sense, pretty easy. It's pretty standard Souls-like, so there's not really too much to talk about there. And then the other mechanics, like for example, the magic system feels really good too. I like the magic a lot in this game. It felt strong, it felt impactful, and it still feels very Souls. And when it comes to it, like you'll see a lot of similarities between Souls type spells and then this game's type spells, but it all felt very good. And bonus note, one of the things that I really like, and I wish they did in Souls games, is when you have like a weapon buff magic spell, like I have like the radiant weapon buff, you can see it in the clips where you apply like radiant damage to your weapon. If you're dual wielding, it applies to both, which is absolutely amazing, and I wish every Souls game did that because that's so nice, right? Like I cannot explain how nice that is to just have in the game. So that's really nice. Dual wielding is, going back to combat, dual wielding also is very fun and very powerful, but it does come with its own downsides because you are locked into animations a lot more and you probably will get hit a lot more. So just watch out for that. But the dual wielding mechanic and the way that it works, being able to dual wield basically any 2 weapons that you want, is really nice, and it does open up build diversity, which brings me on to my next topic. There's a ton of build diversity in this game. There's a ton of different magic systems. There's a ton of different weapons. There's, if you want to go quality builds, if you want to go strength, if you want to go agility, or for people that don't know agility, basically dex builds, right? Same thing for this game. There's a ton. Like there's so much that you can do. There's a ton of starting classes. So that to me is like a huge plus, because that's one of the main things that attracts me to Souls-like games, is all of the diversity that are in the games, that are present in the games when it comes to build diversity. Because if you've seen the other videos on my channel, I like making builds. Kind of what I do. I'm a theory crafter. That's one of the main things I like doing. So I'm glad that this game supports it. Character customization. Speaking of just builds and stuff, character customization was okay. It wasn't like the worst one I've seen, but it's definitely not the best. I really didn't like that, like for like the faces and stuff and the features and like your body shape, it was all just based on like a triangle slider. I wish that they had like preset faces, or they had like more, like you can do like more specific ones if you want to, but usually I like ones where you pick like a preset face and then you edit it instead of having to just move the slider around, because I feel like I always just like get it wonky, and it just like my character doesn't look as good as I want them to, and that's super important to me in RPG games. So that's another thing to talk about. But ultimately, the last thing that I want to say for my first impressions is that the voice acting is pretty great, and the cutscenes are like 10 out of 10. The cutscenes, the atmosphere, like I said before, is amazing. The voice acting is really good too. I think all the characters sound fantastic. They all have unique voice lines and dialogue, but still sound like they fit in the world. So that's really nice. But ultimately, this game really, really impressed me, and I'm having a ton of fun playing it as an avid Dark Souls enjoyer. This is a really, really great, possibly the best Souls-like game that we've had in a long time, that still stays true to the formula while adding something unique, and I absolutely love it. I'm having a ton of fun with it, and I do think that if you're on the fence about this game, or you consider trying it, or if you do like Souls-like games in general, you should absolutely give this one a try. You definitely do not want to miss this game, because there's a ton of fun to be had. And if you're worried about difficulty, this game's pretty difficult. Like, this game can be pretty difficult, so staying true to that Souls nature, it's not impossible, but it still has that challenge in there. So ultimately, a ton of fun. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you want to see more Lords of the Fallen content. I can do some builds on this one too, because I'm really excited about that, and I would love to do some builds for it. So if you want to see builds on Lords of the Fallen, then just let me know down in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like on the video, as well as hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell, so that way you are notified whenever I do upload. I do upload every Friday, so make sure to come back next week for next week's video. And that is all the time for me today, so I will see you in the next one.